I don't know how many of you read the profile of Ben Rhodes in the magazine, but there was a long and bizarre, thoroughly bizarre passage on Iran where the writers seemed to be using Rhodes's words to say, in effect, there are no moderates in Iran. It was an invention of the Obama administration in order to get the deal through. I mean, that's nonsense. There is a real power struggle in Iran between President Rouhani and Foreign Minister Zarif, who have broadly a vision, I think, of bringing Iran out from its pariah status. It's the 18th economy in the world. It's the only top 20 economy that's not integrated with the global economy. They clearly have China in mind in some way, that the model broadly can be preserved, but underneath that, the country can join the world, and they are reformists. They weren't invented by Ben Rhodes or by anybody else. They are reformists, and tens of millions of Iranians, many of them young, support them. They also exist. They weren't invented in the White House. And against that, you have the Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei, now 76, who, so he would be 91 at the end of the 15-year accord, but he may not, of course, last that long. And how the succession is handled in Iran will be a huge question and a huge dilemma. But the one pillar of the revolution that still exists, I think, for him is Marg bar America, death to America, chanted every Friday with no real feeling, I think, of any kind behind it, at least in the mouths of most people. But he remains terrified that some kind of colored revolution, obviously the Green Movement of 2009, that somehow this will be infiltrated into Iran and the Islamic Republic will be undone. And behind him, of course, he has the Revolutionary Guards, and who are very present, as Bobby's been saying, in Iraq. And it's that tension between the two, which I think is roughly evenly balanced right now, that produced the nuclear accord. That's why it happened, because each needed the other sufficiently for that deal to go through, and I won't go into why. So I think now it's still early days. The hardliners in Iran are leaping on the fact that Iran has fulfilled its side of the bargain. The number of centrifuges has been slashed from 20,000 to 5,000. All the enriched uranium has left the country. There's no more 3% enriched uranium, no more 20% enriched uranium. The Iraq route to a bomb has been cut off. There's this very intense inspections from the IAEA. We've done our bit, but where's the beef? Where's the beef? That's what the hardliners are saying. And they're saying that because European banks, which need to provide the financing for a lot of the deals that would fulfill the ambitions of Rouhani and Zarif, they are terrified, because they've already been slapped with huge fines in the United States. They're terrified that if they do provide that kind of financing, that because that financing is often in dollars, and so the money does circuit through the United States. I mean, as you know, the US sanctions that prevent any US company or individual from doing business with Iran remain in place. So once those dollars circle through the US, or if there's a US citizen at one of these banks involved, plus ownership structures in Iran are very opaque, so you're never quite sure if you might be dealing with a company or corporation in which the Revolutionary Guards have some ownership. And again, that would cross a US red line. So the money hasn't really been forthcoming. So I think that's the fundamental issue right now with the deal. Overall, I would say if that can be resolved, at least to some degree, before the Iranian presidential election in 2017, next year in June, that's clearly very important. Because if Rouhani and Zarif cannot say, you see, it's beginning to work, then there'll be a lot of pressure on the deal. Not to speak of, who knows what the outcome will be here in the United States of the presidential election. If I were betting, I think the accord is resilient. I think there will be a lot of ups and downs as there were in the negotiation. but I think it was the best outcome in the real world, and I think any leader on either side looking at the alternative will conclude this is not perfect, it's not great, there are big problems with implementing it, but it's the best thing we've got.